Hello, humans. Master Dinnerflex here, bringing you low quality content you deserve. And today, I'll be going over Darklords. Now, this is a very, very different version of Darklords that you're probably not going to see pretty much anywhere else on YouTube because someone on Dueling Book showed this deck off to me, and I really had to show it off to you guys. The concept is very simple. You get to indulge Darklord, and you get to Rivalry, and your opponent, unless they're playing a fairy deck, they can't summon monsters. And it's kind of funny because there's not a lot of outs to this in comparison to other things. So I don't know, it's actually just quite satisfying. And since Darklords are naturally a very draw heavy deck where they just draw a bunch of cards, it's really easy to see Rivalry. But let's get into it. 3 Indulged Darklords. This card, if it wasn't for the existence of Rivalry, would be the worst card of this archetype. And there are bad cards of this archetype. So when it's normal or special summoned, you get to take 2 Darklords from your deck. Or even hand, technically, but mainly from your deck. One of them you add to your hand, and the other one you give to your opponent on their side of the field in defense. Now, you might be thinking, how is that good? Well, it actually isn't. If you don't see Rivalry, that's a really bad effect, because you have given your opponent a monster to link summon with. You actually you gave your opponent the better effect than you gave yourself. But since we can kind of cheese this strategy with Rivalry, it's fine for this scenario. But if you're playing a Darklord deck that isn't trying to play Rivalry, or if you're not playing Rivalry, do not play this card. Just because it kind of shows itself off as a Stratos, it definitely isn't. It definitely isn't. So 3 of this, unfortunately. 3 Ixchel, best Darklord ever made. 3 Superbia. 1 Nastin, because Nastin is actually terrible. The only reason I felt like I wanted to play this is just because it is a Darklord that can just summon itself. This is not a Megalo. Nothing about this is Megalo except it discards 2 of your archetype. This card is really bad. But if I didn't play this, there are many scenarios where you can search it just to get a summon on board. And it's the only Darklord that does it. 1 Nurgle. So this could actually be 2 Zerato. But the thing that I like about 1 and 1 of these is they're both trade-in targets, but one of them is the Zerato, while the other one is a copy Darklord. Which, copying Darklords, they actually needed this level for a long time. The copy Darklords, none of them were level 8, so when you wanted to send a copy Darklord to your graveyard, trade-in was never an answer. But with Nurgle, it actually is now. But you could also play 2 Zerato, because in many cases, after you're done locking your opponent out and you're just going for game, you just want to Regeki them and end the duel as quick as possible, and Zerato does that. 1 Amdos, this is what you give to your opponent off of Indulged. You don't give them this, because then they can just crash it into Indulged and they're out of the lock. But Amdusk, if they attack this, it dies and they're still stuck with the Amdusk. So you gotta give them this one. Or the next best option is actually to give them this one. So yeah. 1 Amdusk. It's also got a kind of alright effect, so that's okay. 1, that name. He's pretty good. Just protect your guys from destruction. Then 1 Ukobak. If you start using this again more than once, if you have to use this more than once, go ahead and giving them an Ukobak, just because you know you can get rid of this in pretty much any scenario. And then finally, for the only 3 hand traps in the deck, 3 Herald of Orange Light. Now, this is not a hand trap because I think it's a good hand trap. This is in the deck strictly to counter Ash Blossom, Droll and Lockbird, and anything that would try to interrupt Indulged. And originally, like, Gamma seems like the best choice, but the whole thing, like the last thing I said, if they interrupt Indulged, it could actually just stop your engine and you just can't continue playing. And since you normal summon, you can't do anything with Gamma. So I played Orange Light. It's a usable hand trap going second, but mainly it's to protect your like draw engine going first, and that's like all it does. So that's kind of important. Triple trade in, triple allure, 1 desires, 1 card destruction, and 1 upstart goblin. So this is kind of weird. Normally it'd be like 2 to 3 desires. But first off, this deck draws a lot with the eggshells, the trade-ins, the allures. So you can actually see Pot of Desires. You can like flood your hand with them at multiples. So I was thinking 2. But since I'm trying to see Rivalry, and this is going to sound a little strange, it's not the amount of cards you want to see. It's the number of different cards you want to see. So, to explain that a little more, if you desires, you get to see 2 new cards. But if you card destruction a bad hand, you get to see 4 new cards. So if you like have a hand of 3 or 4 cards, and you've yet to see Rivalry, this is double what Desires is going to let you see. Because you just want to see Rivalry, and you're trying to do everything to dig to it, and playing more than 1 Desires, that doesn't get you there. It just gets you 2 chances at it, whereas this can get you a lot more chances at it. Then Upstart Goblin, this deck is nothing but just draw power. And obviously, I would normally play less than 40, and any deck you would want to play less than 40, you put Upstart in. Banishment of the Darklords, Darklord Contact, Reborn and Called by the Grave just act as a 4th Orange Light, and then 2 Rebellion for when you actually have to play the game, and then triple Rivalry of Warlords. Side deck, I would actually recommend for games 2 and 3 actually playing a much more interactive like Darklord deck, because this can actually work game 2 and 3. Like, you can break their board with stuff and then like summon Indulge and rivalry them out that way. And like Rivalry's actually kind of cool at breaking boards because it's effectively a almost Regeki to an established board, because unless they have all the same type, they're going to have to wipe until they control only one type. So like even in that scenario is kind of fine. But I would still recommend this strategy of just turbo drawing to this floodgate. Literally don't bother with it going second unless you know you can naturally break whatever that deck is trying to do. So a much more interactive deck or strategy needs to be cited. Then for the X deck, the only thing that truly matters is Condemned Darklord, just because it can get you to Indulged. If you have a normal summon and you haven't seen it yet, that could actually be really good in here. And it comes up from time to time, and the healing also is pretty nice. Surprisingly, it is actually very handy. Then like the rest of this, play whatever you need. This deck has some cool options, especially with the rank 8s. But yep, that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. This deck's very cool. The original deck that was sent to me with this strategy, it had a lot of like cards I wasn't okay with, and cards that kind of defeated from this strategy, which I thought was the strongest Darklord strategy. Like they were playing Morning Star and the fusion stuff, and it just like it wasn't working. Christia was also pretty cool, but the issue I had with Christia is it kind of it wasn't live as much as I remember it being in this deck. Like it was a lot more difficult to pull off Christia, and I don't really know why. I was just having some pretty bad luck with it, so I decided to cut it. And like Rivalry does the same thing, except now they can't even normal summon, so I was fine with that. But yep, that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and remember, Master Neuroflex will take your soul.